Good morning, almost good afternoon. We're going to go pretty rapidly, and I will right away break the first rule of presentation, which is never stand in front of the slides and try to do laser surgery on yourself. Does not work well at all. But I wanted to do a shameless self-promotion and recommend to you, for those of you who have a lot of time on your hands and don't know what to do with it. How many of you have plenty of time on your hands? Nope. dcvelocity.com/blogs, The Art of Art, has got a twice weekly random thought that occurred to me. And sometimes it has things to do with supply chain management, other times with leadership, other times with collaboration, sometimes with popular music. I was probably the first blogger in the field of supply chain management who evoked an image of Lady Gaga in a meat dress. So, yeah, we have a little fun with that. And also in the magazine, I have a monthly column called Basic Training, which generates some level of interest or confrontation or whatever. Excuse me. So we're going to jump into this. I'm going to go pretty fast because there are two versions of this, 25 minutes and 2.5 hours. We're going to try for the 25-minute version today, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. And the fact of the matter is, once we get all done with the old guy in front going blah, 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 I feel like a Muppet sometimes. The guy got his hand in a sock and I'm doing my little presentation. It's more important a handful of things that you take them away as opposed to listening to all of the pearls of wisdom that come drooling out of the corner of my mouth. So, with that, let's get into it. What is all this about? Well, what this is really all about begins with the idea of collaboration. And the last time I was here at this event, I talked a lot about the great talent shortage that was pervasive throughout the world of supply chain management. It's actually pervasive throughout manufacturing, through all of business, finding the right combination of IQ and life experience to really interpret all of the things that are going on around us. But I was concerned about collaboration as well. And I get excited about the software product. It's not a commercial for Alenica. I'm not part of Alenica. I don't get paid to do that. I just get paid to blah, blah, blah. But software, technology that enables us to share information, to communicate and collaborate is fantastic. Wow, I wish we had it 30 years ago. We had grand plans and it was tough to execute. And we got so many tools that are neat. I'm envious, I really am. But collaboration is key. We've entered an era of collaboration, which collaboration is going to define how leaders in our industry do business and not only survive but prosper. So, ultimately, though, we have to get down to the bedrock, and that is we can talk about collaboration, and if all you do is share more transactional data, that's not really collaboration. And it's a higher order of transaction, but it's still a little bit arm's length, and you're not walking in the other person's shoes. So you've got to have trust as a foundational ingredient in a collaborative, a genuinely collaborative relationship. And trust is not a thing that is established by a memo that comes out of the CEO's office. We are now a culture of trust. Yeah, I got your trust right here, dude. We got New Jersey right across the river. I got your trust. What's it about, really? Well, it's got to be built into the DNA of the organization. If you have to announce that it's part of your culture, you're in trouble already. It's like the person who feels compelled to remind you every single day, I'm a people person. Don't tell me that again, or you're not going to be dealing with any people. It's got to be genuine and built in. So how do we build trust? Where do we start? How does all that? Well, it's pretty simple, really. No, it's not. It's difficult. Straightforward, but difficult. You start inside the four walls of the organization, because you can't go out to customers and key suppliers and talk about collaboration and trust if you don't practice the principles of trust relationships within your own organization. And when you do, you wake up one morning and nobody has to issue a memo. You have got a trust culture within your organization. Now you can take your show on the road. Now you've got license and credibility to talk upstream and downstream about relationships and collaboration and genuine sharing. So the lessons that we learn when we talk about working with associates, employees, staff, whatever words we want to choose to describe those, they all translate to the basics of building trust relationships are kind of the same. Whether you're a team leader, a third shift supervisor, a day shift supervisor, a manager, a vice president, a CEO, what you do to build a trust relationship within your circle translates throughout an organization. The basics are the basics. It's not different because this one over here makes $27 million a year and plays golf in a rarefied atmosphere. This guy here is trying to figure out, do I need to get a bigger car to go to Costco to feed the whole family, you know? So all of those lessons translates really, really well, and they translate then into the outside world. Are you getting scared yet? I've used up all this time and we're only one slide into this thing. I'm a little worried, but we'll try to go in there. So a lot begins with how you view people in the organization. Are they replaceable parts? Are they commodities? Let her go. Plenty more where that came from. Yes, Mr. Wexner, I understand. There are lots of people who will take off most of their clothes and pose in your underwear. You know, but there is a limited supply. And there's going to be another underwear brand that comes along that makes a generous offer to Pauline and somebody or another, and so on and so on. What's an asset? What's a replaceable part? Can you manage and maintain change within your organization? Do you have an organization in which you have minions who do your bidding? Or do you have an organization in which you can engage and recognize and reward, again, the circle around you, whether you're supervisor, manager, vice president, etc., etc. You may notice that I left off motivates. Why do you suppose I did that? Any thoughts? I'll give you an opinion. If you're going to be shy and bashful here, I'll give you an opinion. And my opinion is that it doesn't matter how good a leader you are at any of those organizational levels. You can't motivate your people. They can only motivate themselves. You can create an environment that's conducive to self-motivation. You can be a servant leader. You can remove barriers. You can take the heat when things are getting tough, etc., etc. But one-to-one, you cannot motivate. You might inspire. You might dazzle. You might do a lot of things. But sustainable motivation comes from within organizations based on the way they get treated. So what do we do in building these relationships? Well, we start on day one. We communicate a lot. We involve people. We leverage their skills. We figure out where our weak spots are. This sounds a lot like a SWOT analysis, doesn't it? Yeah. We leverage our strengths, we see where the chinks in the armor are, and we shore up, fill in as best we can. But ultimately, it's about, in these relationships with our circle, any level in the organization, outside the organization, being genuine and understanding them for what they are. What makes them tick? Do you even know what makes you tick? From a job standpoint, what turns you on? What turns you off? What works, what doesn't work? And if it works for you, you think it works for the people who work for you?
Necessarily.
Not necessarily, yeah. I'm a big believer, I love to sing, I'm very bad at it, and my favorite thing to sing is Nessun Dorma. But I can't hit the high notes anymore the way a couple of others can, so I'm reduced to doing English music hall tunes and that kind of thing. At any rate, the gift of opera tickets means nothing to most of the people that I know. I'd kill to be one more time with Pavarotti, you know? And so on and so forth. If I'm into another age of music, I can't give away the reunion tour of Pink Floyd in a sold-out 100,000-seat stadium to people who really do want to hear Andrea Bocelli. You got to understand what makes them tick. What makes you tick? What makes them different? I'm going to skip over a lot of this stuff, and I'm going to look at my watch surreptitiously here, oh boy, and say that there's a lot of this stuff that we need to understand as leaders about the workings of the human brain and how it's wired and how it makes people function, how it generates reactions and responses, and it gets into the physical structure of the brain. And Carol talked about it a little bit this morning. You run an MRI and areas light up. That stuff really works. It really is true. And what we get in a population, y'all have done the Myers-Briggs thing 100 times probably. What makes a person fall into an ENTJ or whatever one of those squares or whatever is really rooted in this idea that we've got this remnant of a reptilian brain in the limbic system within our heads. And then we've got the neocortex, which is kind of Hercule Poirot's little gray cells all over the rest of it, and that's what gives us the ability to reason, the ability to speak in languages, to think through things, and to run the machinery like that. And in that reptilian brain, life is real simple. It's the seat of fight or flight. It's the seat of memory. Memory is in the cat only has to land on the hot stove once to never get on top of the stove again. So on and so forth. So there are lots of tools that are available to us to understand ourselves and understand other people. Importantly, we have to know ourselves before we can know others. We can't play junior shrink and look at all these other folks without first understanding what makes us tick. And then we can get into some of the others. Part that usually gets left out is FIRO-B, which is a beautiful tool for determining if you're into a team building mode, and that could be getting alignment at the C level as well as building a project team. Who really wants to be on the team? And are there two people who really want to, and do they both want to drive the bus? Well, that doesn't work. This tool helps us figure that out. Who's capable but really doesn't care, is not committed? You can find that out. And also, Thomas Kilmann is another great tool because it helps us understand our own and other people's styles and preferences, primaries and fallbacks in managing conflict. And conflict can be anything from the music you play at an annual users conference to what goes on at the company picnic to a strategic redirection of whatever. And knowing all of those is really, really important. we'll skip over all of these things because they're all illustrations of knowing people. I will take a second and talk about the Furman brain dominance instrument as a great tool for understanding others as you try to get them to build a trust relationship together with you. And that's to understand, we're talking a little bit about ambiverts today instead of introverts and extroverts. Well, Ned Herman was onto this 30 years ago, in which, like Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, recognized that all of us are really people of many parts, all at once. We're not all this. We don't slot into that Myers-Briggs box and never get outside those walls. We have this mix of preferences and styles. And this happens to be mine, by the way. I'm a DC, very not an uncommon pairing. These are kind of dream weavers and complex problem solvers up here. These are Earth Mothers. Did anybody bring the brownies? I don't want to hurt the feelings of people down here. Here are project managers, so on and so forth, people who track budget performance, neat stuff like that. Up here is the person who says, other side of the wall, 0800 Monday morning. Don't care, over, under, around, through, other side of the wall, Monday morning. Cool. So Herman gets at all of that mix of styles. As it happens, I score really low here in that project management kind of stuff. But I have a reputation among my peers as being really good at it. And I'll tell you why I'm really good at it. Because I hate it. It's just, I'm spending time on this worthless trash to get it done. Because I want to go up here and play. And that works. And you need to understand that level of behavior and motivation about all your people. So all those tools are part of our kit that we can play against the needs of a situation. And by the way, don't forget about the reality of Maslow's hierarchy, in which if you're working with somebody down here who's making $9.75 an hour pulling sodas at the drive-thru at Mickey D's, that person gets motivated by pay and perks much differently than someone up here who's already on a path to self-actualization and fulfillment. And you got to know where people are in that scheme of things. So trust, building trust. What is it? Well, we got schools of trust, and I won't go into great depth in this, but at the end of the day, they all kind of work the same, but the manifestations might be different. There's a New York school, which is a lot like the New Jersey school, which is I got your trust right here. And then there's a Missouri show me level of trust, and then there's a West Coast phenomenon. Yeah, whatever, dude. But at the end, we want results, outcomes, and accountabilities. We just express it a little bit differently. Importantly, though, as we think about trust and building trust, there are different measures. Someone may be utterly sincere and totally incompetent. And you need to understand that before you trust this person who's really sincere to do that job that ain't never going to get done. So that's another ingredient in understanding the people around you. The Johari Window can come into play. We'll skip that for right now. And now violating the second rule of PowerPoint presentations, having a type font that's way too small to be read. Holy cow. Well, you can earn trust by taking the lead, by taking the first steps. And that's very useful. Don't wait for the individuals to come to you. Come to the individuals and demonstrate that you understand enough that you're worth a gamble on their part. Reveal a human side to yourself. It is incredible in an organization or a team how much power you can gain by confessing weakness in a single area and by being genuine about that weakness. That doesn't mean faking missing the 2-foot putt. That's a different problem altogether. Always begin with relationship, interaction kinds of conversations before you get down to business. Don't spend all day doing it. We do have a job to do, but don't open the door, blam, here's where we got to go, here's the end objective, here's the target, etc., etc. Let's talk about what's going on. Man, where'd your son finally wind up? Is he really going to Brown? No kidding. Wow, cool. Good thing you got the raise. And whatever. But the point is, it's a genuine level of human interaction. There's a famous story about a fake leader who used to walk around on, managing by walking around, and he had little reminder cards. How's the golf game? Hello, Marvin. Bill! Damn, Bill. How's your wife? And Bill says, still dead. So, it's got to be genuine. Got to be authentic. And it needs to be not always all about you and what you want. It's about what they want long term to do, where they want to go. And it's not as fake as the HR question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Who knows? I can't see myself in 5 weeks. I don't know. How do you ask some recent graduate where you want to be in 5 years? But, test yourself in moments of truth and learn to value the contributions of people who are different. Different in style, different in temperament. The death knell for an organization is the telltale sign is when we hire people who are just like us, because we're all innovators. Well, you're going to innovate yourself and the whole team into the ditch. Companies crash and burn when we get too many people who are up there in that D quadrant of dreaming and scheming and plotting what the future is going to be like. So value the compulsive, the anal retentive project manager who's ticking off timelines and deliverables and so on and so forth, because that person will keep you out of the ditch. You may not get together for drinks after work, but it's a valuable part of an organization. And that's sort of the real world of doing business. There are risks and rewards. Are we going to turn over people? Are we going to degrade quality by making people accountable, by giving them authority, by letting them learn by failing, and so on and so on? But bad stuff can happen. There are rewards to building diverse, and I'm not saying that just because it's a popular word today, but genuinely diverse teams with diverse skill sets, so on and so forth. A lot of benefits to getting it right. A lot of risks, a lot of things to go wrong. So moving quickly into building trust, we would like to think that everybody wants to do a good job and a flower blooms wherever it happens to fall. Reality for most of us is you don't get to start with a clean sheet of paper and fire everybody and hire all superstars. You inherit an organization, typically. We move on. We move to another department. We move to another division. Suddenly, I'm running Europe instead of North America. Holy moly. What's German for holy moly? I don't know. I got to figure it out. Yeah? So, you're inheriting something wherever you are. And I get really agitated by slogans. I just become uncontrollable, frothing at the mouth. And one of my makes my teeth hurt. Good to great. I mean, it sounds wonderful. Good to great. Yes, let's all climb Everest. How about if we just go from bad to better as a starter? Get off get off the ground and see where we can go from there. How much can we move? Well, there's another way of looking at this, and this is really based on classical situational leadership models of transaction and relationship strengths and not so strengths. This is a high task, high relationship individual. That's a super stoic. Here's a high task, low relationship kind of person. I could do this job a lot better if I weren't saddled with all these incompetents who can't do it half as well as. This is a savant. Genius, but not much fun at a party. Over here, we've got the low transactional, high relationship people. Yo, are we doing bar bowling? We're meeting at McGillicuddy's at what 6? We're all going for that. And by the way, I didn't have time to get to this. If you could possibly, that's the slacker over there. And over here is the low task, low relationship. This is the sluggard. This is the person that Carol was talking about. What percent of your workforce is kind of down there? And you want me to build trust with that hot mess? Well, maybe. Let's see how that plays out. We had a situation in which, and the importance of this in building trust is that it's a commitment of you understanding the individuals well enough to make these kind of moves, of demonstrating to the individuals that they have value and they have long-term worth, and your interest is in helping them succeed for the long term. Wow, I've never had a boss do that before. A little frightening. Think it's for real? I don't know, but let's give it a chance. Well, we were going through a supply chain transformation, and I cannot name any names, but it's the largest municipally owned public utility in the country, and possibly it's located close to Temple University. I'm not saying anything. The DNA of the organization was really scary. Utilities, civil service, and a militant bargaining unit, all within the same organization. High visibility with the Utilities Commission, the City Council, the mayor, competitors, social action group, neighborhood, community organizers, etc., etc. So really old company, it's the kind of place you'd work your whole life, and then your sons and your daughters would come along, they'd work their whole lives, and nobody rocked the boat. Ever. So, here are the players in this little game. Marvin is a year from retirement, seen it all, can't handle any more change. Just wants to wish that he had hair one more time so he could get on his vintage Indian cycle and ride with the wind in your hair. That's all he wanted to do. Marvin the sluggard. Paulette the savant, bitter, nasty, tough woman. Come in the morning, go into her office, gently close the door. Blam! The vice president of supply chain said, "You got to meet Paulette." And her approach to meeting Paulette was to go up to the door and say, "Paulette, we know you're in there, and if you don't open this door, we're going to take it off the hinges." The door opens. Not a friendly face. So Paulette was a savant. Warren was a slacker, really a likable guy, but just absolutely clueless. Pierre was a savant. Man. Narcissistic, talented, quick learner, smart as anything. Mary Jane was a sluggard. She failed at everything. Fought with every column. And they had a very strong labor relations organization. She played every card in the deck as they tried to document the case that it took to fire Mary Jane and get her out. Buster was a slacker, a know-it-all, disengaged, so on and so forth. This is a real collection of Nimrods, let me tell you. So, what happened? Getting together. Sit down with Marvin. Marvin, talk to me. Now, this is a warning sign. Anytime the consultant is acting in place of management, there's trouble. That is not a good thing. But nature abhors a vacuum, and there was no leadership, and you do what you got to do. Sat down with Marvin. Talk to me, man. What's happening? Nice jacket. Never have an accident? I see you got a big tear down. Anyways, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. Every damn consultant who comes in here, they want to change everything. We got new forms. I only got a year left. I want to ride. I tell you what, I'll teach the kids everything I know, but please don't make me do this different. Please don't make me do it. Okay, you got a deal. You'll be a mentor for the kids. And after a year, you can go ride. And you don't have to use the new process. Paulette. I needed Paulette. I asked her what's going on. She said, what's going on is I'm surrounded by morons. And she kind of was. They took me out of where I was really good and put me in here. Well, they want magic? I needed to know where the bodies are buried, so we made a deal. Paulette, you tell me where the bodies are buried, and nobody will ever know it came from you. And I can't guarantee what happens after that, but what I'm going to try to do is find you a happier place where you can do a job that you love to do. Warren, put Warren in a new role completely. Take advantage of his charming, winning personality and the fact that he couldn't possibly be competent in this area, but he could be a superstar in that area. Turn him around. He was concerned about minority participation in sourcing awards. I can't make him win, you know, I can't make him win. And my advice was, don't worry about making him win. Worry about making the pool deeper and wider, and winners will emerge out of it. Within less than 6 months, 100% of their paving contracts were won by minority contractors. And old Warren, his diversity numbers were beating the target that had been set by the city of Philadelphia by a lot. Pierre was tough. He was tough. I had to drag him outside one day. Pierre, whose name is on the building? And he said, the name. I said, when your name is on the building, you can do what you want. Until then, you can't. So we paired him up with a slacker from another department. And Pierre learned people skills by watching the other. And the two of them together put together a landmark program for low-income customers of this particular utility. Huge win. Amazing. So he learned about political and persuasive skills. He got coached regularly with humility and authenticity. He became a superstar and was so good that he actually left the company in a positive move and went to a company whose name you would recognize in a second. Mary Jane, we stopped trying to build the case for firing Mary Jane. We got her into employee assistance, and it turns out she had both an emotional fragility, a diagnosable medical condition, and an affinity for certain drugs that clouded her judgment on a 24/7 basis. So we got her into help instead of getting her fired and out on the street. Buster, you don't win them all. Buster, you got all your money coming in a buyout. You spend every spare minute on St. Martin. You probably ought to move to St. Martin and join a volunteer fire company there, because I think he was a secret arsonist. He really liked going and putting out fires. So this is an example of what you can do with individuals. Can you make them all superstars? No. Can you get them closer to superstar? Can you make them more tolerable savants? Can you make them more productive slackers? Yeah. You can move closer to the line. And the one person, Pierre, did turn into a superstar. Yeah, you're really great ones you're going to lose from time to time. And that's not a bad thing from a life standpoint. Not bad at all. So, the foundation. We live in an age of trust, communications, collaboration. Get your people in order first. Teach them the basics, get them to practice, and then transfer this to customers and peers. Ultimately, it's about people. What they're capable of, what they can do, how you can remove obstacles from their paths, how you can be a servant leader that builds a trust relationship with a circle of workers, a circle of peers, whatever the group is that you're working with. And unless you're already at the C level as a leader, by the way, part of this trust building is when one of your people does something really, really good, make sure everybody knows. You don't have to have a ceremony. You don't have to hand out medals. You don't have to give away Pink Floyd tickets. But make sure that the boss knows that a specific person or a specific team has accomplished something really, really good. Basically, it's about doing the right thing, walking the walk, developing winners. And this sounds kind of dumb, but it helps to start each day with a smile, because there's going to be something good in that day, and working with people and in building and reinforcing this trust relationship that they're going to ultimately take outside the company. How many of you shop at the Container Store? Couple people confessing. They have more training almost than anybody in terms of employee education. And they manage to turn them loose, and they are positively motivated, and it transfers to how they treat customers. They're enthusiastic, they're excited about their products, their specials, their whatever is going on. It's amazing what ambassadors they become for the company with actually a relatively small investment. Now, some beady-eyed CFO is going to say, do you realize we could save $20,000 a year per employee if we didn't? Well, yeah, I realize that. And I realize how much your sales would fall off if you just had a bunch of drones walking around with busy, rather talking about the hot new band in town than what it is the customers are after this week. So all of that stuff is really important. But when you get to the point where you're in good shape internally, then you can kind of take stock of where you are in your key customer relationships, in your mission critical supply relationships. Start with putting together joint problem solving teams. That's always a good way to get some creative juices flowing. Keep the people who want to keep meticulous score out of the act, because you don't want people arguing about, no, I should get 41% of the savings from. Cut it out. Learn to work together. Design a carton so that the damn machine doesn't shut down twice every 24 hours because it caught a flap wrong. Figure it out. Work together. You both win in that deal. Put together some collaborative risk management approaches. And, risk management is one of the hottest areas going today. We have forgot the lesson of New Orleans and Katrina and Yossi Sheffi's book, The Resilient Enterprise. It's amazing. Short attention span, theater in action. Share credit and benefits, however you do that, monetarily, PR-wise. Figure that out. It'll be different with different situations. Start with baby steps and then amp it up. I just did last night. I had to leave the dueling pianos early. because I couldn't hear the people across the table. But I was working on a column, and it was about the late W. Edwards Deming. And he was all about, you figure out how to solve problems, eliminate waste, ramp up quality, etc., 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 do a lot of good things, and you will be amazed at how fast you can go from a performance standpoint. And if you keep on making performance improvements, if you keep on building stronger bonds of trust internally and externally, pretty soon you'll be going at speeds you would have thought would be death-defying if somebody had asked you 5 years earlier. Oh, promise something that you don't know how you're going to deliver on. Wonder how I might tie into Carol's section this way. So you want to work hard at being a preferred customer or a preferred supplier, depending on where you are in the supply chain. You want to do joint solution development. You want to think about when you get really, really tight in these relationships, these collaborations, you can get together with a customer and say, let's talk about where we see in your end market go. And if their end market is a consumer, what's happening in the consumer marketplace that's going to change what we have to do to continue to outpace the competition. That's the kind of relationship you're beginning to build when you start internally, get this as part of the organizational DNA, and then take measured steps in an organized way to go through building relationships externally. Amazing. And once again, communicate. Whenever there's a win, communicate. So with that, I'm out of gas. I forgot to check the time. We're 10 minutes over, which is about where we started. Questions, comments, observations, violent disagreements? No, I see people that are almost raising their hands. Yes?
You touched on earlier in the presentation about how collaboration is not just transactional sharing of information. I guess I would ask in kind of your purview, when you're trying to foster a collaborative relationship with a partner, legacy ways, I've seen this, Steve from the purchasing organization is talking to Sue from the supplier organization, and that's where it kind of inherently starts, that trust. But when that's because they're passing information through very legacy formats. But when you take that away and it goes, automated and transactionally based, how do you still continue to foster that collaborative relationship? Whether at the operational level, tactical level, or strategic level.
I wish I had, this is one of those moments where I said, oh, sorry, Professor Snape, I left my wand in my other robes. But seriously, what happens in a situation like that when we get technology-enabled transfer of raw information, our responsibility, whoever we are and wherever we are in the supply chain, becomes one of, wow, I wonder what this means. Is there a trend emerging, or is this a blip? And then that gives you license. That gives, I forget, Sue and whoever else. You have one license to call the other and say, I've been looking at the data and it sort of looks like, what do you think? How do you see it? Is this a longer term issue? Is this something that we've got to start shoring up against future developments? And it actually elevates the quality of the collaborative relationship, because you're dealing with what does this mean as opposed to how big is this pile of numbers.
Yeah. Okay? So you're saying you still maintain those channels of communication?
Absolutely. Okay. Well, you got to maintain them actively for a couple of reasons. One is if you can elevate the dialogue and its content and its import, that's a good thing in general. The other is that particularly in larger corporations, there is so much churn structurally, that whoever you've been working with for 18 months is going to be gone in less than 6, and so you gotta maintain all the relationships that you can, because they're going to be changing constantly. There's a shifting cast of characters. So when you get into the habit of communicating on a serious high level, this is a good thing to do from your end, to understand what's going on over there. And it's a good thing from their end when there's a handoff from X to Y. They can say, you know, these guys are really good. They're going to get behind the numbers, and they're going to give you their best shot at what it means to us and the way we work together. And you know, it may be really serious stuff, like if this happens and all the trend lines say that it is, this is going to outstrip production capacity. Somebody's got a decision to make about whether to invest in capital equipment or whether to outsource manufacture or whatever. And you're suddenly starting to deal with balance sheet and earnings statement levels of impact that are way beyond things we normally think of in terms of tweaking transportation costs and one thing or another in the world of supply chain management. Short question, long answer, specialty. Anybody else?
I have one question.
Sure.
Obviously things are becoming more and more distributed. There's more and more remoteness to people these days. But there's more tools in place to do communication. You've talked a lot about building that trust through communication. What are good tools to use and what are bad tools? I mean, we've all got email, we've all got IM, we've all got social media accounts, we've all got phones, we've all got voice and video conferencing. You know, what are the good ones to use and which ones are good ones to avoid?
I'm going to give you a weaselly answer, another specialty. They are all good tools in their place, in their places. It's misusing a good tool that gets us into trouble. So there's a time to IM, there's a time to email, there's a time to video conference, there's a time to have a phone con with multiple participants, depending on the situation. And I will confess to being old school on this issue. That's different from School of Rock, which is a different thing entirely. When you've got distributed contacts to maintain, it's really, really important to have a physical presence at some point. Sounds like wasted money. United Airlines will be happy, but ultimately there is no substitute for knowing that there is a human being who learned Australian rules football and whose son is now kicking for a major American university, as an example. There's no substitute for going to pick a country at random, Germany, and discovering two things. One is they're very impressed by your prowess and flexibility with PowerPoint. Two is that they have no stomach whatsoever for the amount of time that it takes to display that prowess and flexibility. And so checkpointing on cultural differences and cultural points of reference is also very important. What it's all coming down to is that for all of us who are leaders in one form or another, there is a constant layering on of additional responsibility and of added tasks. And The ease of communications with electronic transfer and social media, et cetera, is deceptive, because now we've got to communicate about everything. And if we're not careful, we can just be like the stereotypical, I'm here in my underwear in the basement of my parents' house, searching the internet. We've got to break free of that and know when to spice, to salt and pepper the routine communications with a human presence, because the human presence is now so rare that it's even more valued when it is exercised. That's not the answer you wanted to hear, more work, more places to go, but I think that's a reality that we all deal with in a distributed contact environment. Fair?
Yeah.